Hello accounts people, time to have a look at if statements. We're going to work through the standard if statements, the ones that are just equals if, then if and, if or, and if not, which are very confusing but rarely used. Then nested if statements and using them with dates. Should take about 20 minutes. So it's a logic test, a very important skill. They're very widely used. They do all sorts of functions for you that you don't think about. The examples illustrate some uses. The limitations are endless. They're simple enough examples for you to better type a few numbers in and test and try out on your own spreadsheet, which means you're well on the way to some intelligent practice. So test and apply, but then actually check, has the answer come out right? It's possible to think it's worked and it hasn't. You have two choices. You can learn to use the formula, alter or type it in manually, equals if, open brackets. There's 4 parts to every formula, or use a function wizard sometimes. It's a matter of personal preference, though if it doesn't produce the correct answer, understanding the formula usually helps. Although if you do use a formula, you're likely to end up doing my favourite trick, which is missing off a bracket at the end, or sometimes a typo, or I haven't pressed the shift key right. There are occasions when the use of an equal sign doesn't get the required answer, particularly for dates. I'll show you this on the last example. I can't do anything about it. So if you said something was due today, well, it is only 10 to 2. It may still come in, a delivery or something, but it'll think it's overdue. We can't change that one. Most users are familiar with greater than or less than. All my examples do, but we could have used greater than or equal to, or less than or equal to as well. You haven't got a key on your keyboard for greater than or equal to or less than or equal to. You type the two symbols in separately. So onwards with some examples then. So we have 4 divisions here. We have some sales reps. We're going to work out whether they get a bonus or how much of a bonus they get, and we're working across ways. It gets a little bit more complicated to show the most common combinations. So Joe got 100. We know that's lower than average, so we know what the answer is going to be, and we might as well use the function wizard first. It comes up as if, type in if there if it doesn't. Logic test. Right, so B3 is his sales, and are they greater than B8, the average? That's the test. We know it's false, and if it was though, he would get a bonus. Otherwise he gets a no bonus, because that's what the instruction says. Just to prove it would work, if we put a different number in, he suddenly gets a bonus and the average goes up. So if I type the formula in, equals if, advantages and disadvantages to this method, one of which is I can see the cells I'm talking about, so it realises that cell B4 greater than B. I'm going to copy the formula down, so I need the dollar sign in 8. Logical test. Some logical tests need to be in brackets, not this one though, it's just a straightforward one. And then because it's wording, I need to tell it bonus or no. Oops. No. Bonus, and I probably need to get rid of that space. Very fussy. It's very fussy about using the commas as separators, and of course the equals, it assumes is opening an if statement, which is some of the problems. And of course close the brackets. I've only opened one and I need to close one. So Rizwan also didn't get a bonus. Well, we can see that from the numbers. However, the other 3 should get a bonus, and just to prove it, take some off, shall I? Yeah, no bonus. We better give it a back. So that's a fairly simple one, a straightforward word. We've decided what words. If you use the formula, we need to put it in speech marks. We don't need to in the function wizard. So this one, they're going to get a bonus of 4% if they achieve more than average. So there's going to be a formula in there. But apart from that, it starts off the same. If we're now on F, so greater than F8, that's still the same. So if it's true, it will be F3 times 4%. Or they get 0 and of course we're expecting them to get 0. We should of course run a calculator just to make sure these are going to be the right numbers. We're looking for 4% of 240, 4% of 200. It's easy to do. Yes, it's working right. And just to test it, 4% of 1,000 is 40. Keep the numbers easy. So a simple formula for one of the options, for the true option. Each division get 10% of additional sales, so it's a little bit more complicated. It's still above average though. They still get the same bonus, so it's still, except we're now on J3. J3 greater than J8. Still the same logical test, and if it's positive it's additional sales. So now we need in brackets, because there's a bit of a formula, it'll be there, sales minus, don't forget the absolute reference, and of course BODMAS, multiplication, addition, subtraction, which is why I've had to put this in brackets. Zero. So this is the one where lots of opportunities for it to go wrong in that formula. Let's have a look. We need 10% of, well, it's only 10, well, it's actually, as we know, 189.60, and 90 or 100, 10% roughly of 100, so yes, it's working. And that's 50, 10% of 50, give or take, just over 50, because it's 189.6. We can also refer to a cell. So in this case, the bonus is £500 if they get the bonus. Same start. So we're now on N3. If it's above average. So easy to forget that. Absolute reference before the 8. Don't need it in front of the N because we're not going across. 8 because we're going down. And then it will be cell. Again, absolute reference. Or they get 0. So we know the top two aren't going to get a bonus. And the others are going to get a £500 bonus. So just a little bit more complicated as we went along, using formulas and cell references. There isn't much else that can happen. So this one then is a development of the if statement. So if and if or, I'm just going to use these two numbers here, 9 and 10. I can change them. I've left the function screenshots up. So if and means if both are above 10, it will be good or poor. If it's not. So good if they're both above 10, poor if not. Could use this function wizards. I could type in the formula. There's the formula I'm going to type in. I'm just going to type it in here. We'll use the function wizard then, just although we've got it there. If as normal, and then and at the start. So we've got to say that if it B5 has got to be greater than 10. And there could be a string of these, not just 2, and B6 has also got to be greater than 10. They can of course be different numbers, they don't have to be both. And close the bracket. If it's true, it will say good. No, both these numbers are not above 10, so we're expecting it to say poor, but to prove it works, that's now above 10. It should go good. It'll now go poor. Oh no, 10, 9. Now it'll go poor. So back to where we were. That'll do. So or means if either is above 10, it will be good. So very similar. So type it in formula, this one. Again, same formula, just simple, but it could be more complicated. Again, it highlights what I'm talking about. And then we want poor, and these are good because one of them is above 10, so just to prove it, change that back to a 9 and it goes poor because neither of them are, but if one of them is, it will show good. So it's if one of the values above meets the test, which of course doesn't have to be above number, it could be below or all sorts of other things. So now for the one that's the least logical, so if you don't quite get this, don't worry, it's very rare. It's an if not. What it really should say, if it's not true, because that's what it's about. So we have a target and achieved, and essentially we're saying the logical test is about what have you achieved, and if it's greater than the target, they'll get a really good bonus. That's a false, so it's not true. Very complicated. So let's just have a look at how it works. I'll type it in. Not. And it's all about is C7 greater than B7. So if it's true, we're going to times, it could be our achieved or it could be our target, doesn't matter really, we're just going to put in the formula. And that's all we need to do. So that one comes as 2000 because it isn't, hang on, it's timesing it by 20 because at the moment it is true, so it's not double negative. If we took that down to 9, suddenly it is true that C7 is, it's not true that C7 is greater than B7, so it times it by 100. Yes, well, it's there, it happens if you have to. Nested then, much more useful, much more interesting, much more straightforward to start off with. AAT grades actually, so you have to work in a logical value. You can see the formula here actually, and essentially we start as usual, so we're going to go if, and what we're going to say is if you get more than 90%, well actually we've got to do, well we could actually test it. 5 is greater than 89, you're going to get a distinction. But there's no false, because what we now do is another if statement. Because if D5 is greater than 79, you'll get a merit. And even that hasn't finished because we can put loads of these in if we need to. Just try and keep it to a logical order. 5 is greater than 69. Pass. And if not, you get not yet competent. Hopefully you don't see that too often. And then watch the brackets, we've opened 3 brackets. Purple, red and black. And now it works. Well, we'll see if it works. No need for absolute references because we're just doing these. Yet P. So in that formula, I put a little P, didn't I? And that's a simple way of doing it. However, okay, let's just change this part of the formula. We could have done equal to 70 just to prove it works, and that's a pass. And then 70 works out as a pass. 69.9, and you don't. There we are. So just to show actually that you can use greater than or equal to. So this one then, equal sign, pass marks 12, oh that's exceeded. Okay, so just because I put an equal sign in the formula, not just greater than or equal to. So we're going to work out, so we want D11, oops, and if it's less than 12, so we're working upwards this time instead of downwards, you fail. Doesn't have to be you, it could be an electrical test and voltage or something. And then if it goes, or typing would fail sometimes, equals 12, pass. Otherwise, we've exceeded, or could also be a fail, of course. If it was voltage, would also be a fail, it would be too high. And 2 brackets, one red one, one black one. Fail, pass, exceeded, just to prove it, it works. It has to be exactly the number. Now, equal signs work better with numbers and dates. We'll see that in a minute on the last example. So dates, these have to be formatted as dates. They are formatted to date function. You can use the months. With number work, it tends to be that the numbers work better. It knows it's 2021 at the moment. It knows that last year was a leap year, so February 29 existed last year in 2020, but it doesn't exist this year. If you were trying to work out and add 30 to this or something, or if you added 100 to it, it knows it's not a leap year, as long as you formatted everything as a date. The date today then, so well, we just want today's date really, instead of typing it in, because then tomorrow when I reopen the spreadsheet it will change automatically. So equals now, bracket bracket, just puts in a date. That's what I did. There is a version that puts the time in as well, but we're interested in the date. So okay, a simple one. If this is less than, earlier than, oops, hang on, we need B3, less than B8, it is overdue, or not due. One bracket. That one's overdue. Those aren't due. If we change this to today's date, oops, 07/01, it thinks it's overdue, even though it's got a few more hours left of today. Nested version then, so it works for nested as well. Gives us a few options just to give a bit more information. So equals if, that's the same, and we're now talking about E3. So, and if it is less than E8, this can of course be formulas, but suits this one, overdue. So that is the same. However, let's do a bit more information. Equals if, and we're on F3, greater than E, say a week, reckon I need an extra bracket in there. E. That's okay. If so anything that's more than 7 days in advance, it's not yet due. Otherwise, it's due soon. And the black one. So that one's overdue. This one, second one, oops, that's definitely not working. What's gone wrong on there? Okay, equals less than, it's overdue. That one, if F4 it didn't like the bracket basically. Okay, maybe I didn't need the bracket. So we're a little bit of intelligence, look at the formula. Okay. Nope, that's definitely not working. F4 is greater. E8 plus 7, that's bits fine. It's not yet due. Due soon. I'm not sure why this isn't working. Okay, typical. Due soon, because it just got confused on the brackets. Equals E3 less than that work, fine. If F3, here we go. The simplest of problems. That's better. So that's why you look at the formulas, and that's why it's so easy to do, because we switched lines. So we needed E, looked at the formula, and eventually spotted, you may have spotted it quicker than I did, that I typed in F3 or F4 instead of E. Not yet due soon, and the one in the future is not yet. A little bit more information from our if statement.